Welcome to Learn As You Grow, the podcast where we grow every day in every way, sharing gardening tips, ideas, and inspiration to help you cultivate your best garden and self. Let's talk about the hunger gap. What is the concept of the hunger gap? It's that time in the growing season where you've ate through your storage and there isn't anything fresh growing outside quite yet. So for me in Minnesota, zone 5A, northern hemisphere, that could be from March to May. In the southern hemisphere, maybe that's from August to September. You let me know below if that's you and if I got that wrong. Your goal is to only rely on homegrown food or a local farm or a CSA to feed ourselves. Ultimately, that would be wonderful, but it's kind of feels impossible, right? You want to be able to plan your garden year this year to incorporate food for that hunger gap time, and I'm going to talk you through that. Now, understand that winter is a good time for meat eating if you are a meat eater. We have hunting here in the north. Anybody by the ocean, you have plenty of access to food, feels like all year round. Let's break this down into categories. We have storage in house, storage in ground, perennials, growing indoors, foods that you can forage, and things that grow quickly. These are all concepts in our hunger gap. So storage in house, this is a huge variety of things that you could grow throughout the year to prepare. So if you do any kind of canning, whether that's fermenting, pickling, water bath canning, pressure canning, whether you've dried things or freeze dried things, maybe you froze food. It doesn't mean you had to grow it. You can do this with fresh local fruits and vegetables that you've purchased. There's your dried teas, your dried beans, pumpkins, winter squash, yams, sweet potatoes, garlic, horseradish, ginger, celeriac, celery root, onions, potatoes, beets, carrots. There's your grains. You have amaranth, oats, buckwheat, millet, wheat, rye, quinoa, your popcorn, your flint corn, your sunflower seeds, southern peas, apples, cabbage, rutabaga, parsnips, leeks. These are all foods that we can plan to grow throughout the year and have stored for our winter in the hunger gap. We can also store things in ground and use season extenders. We'll talk about greenhouses in a future episode for season extension. But some places you can store in the ground carrots, leeks, turnips, beets, your sunchokes, otherwise known as a Jerusalem artichoke, right? Some places you can leave things growing in the ground and they kind of overwinter and then you harvest from them in March. So if you leave kale in some places, in some zones, it'll shoot flower shoots up in March and you can eat the flower shoots. Swiss chard, broccoli. You cut the top off the broccoli and you let it produce side shoots. You can harvest those side shoots in March. Your parsley usually is the first thing to come up or come back. Purple sprouting broccoli, cilantro, and fava broad beans could be an option for you depending on your zone. Then there's the perennials, or even an annual that reseeded itself and it's starting to grow in the early spring. Perennials I have around here is asparagus, hosta, rhubarb, chives, bunching onions, walking onions, and some of the annuals that have reseeded or perennials that survived the cold Minnesota winters possibly could be oregano, rosemary. I know for sure I have to bring that inside. Sage, thyme, mint, lovage, and tarragon. And there's also this concept called blanching. Now, not blanching in hot water and freezing with ice water, but blanching outside in the ground by taking like a bucket or a pot and putting it over your asparagus or your rhubarb. And so it has to reach to look for light and it stretches the plant out. It's a really cool thing. Look it up on YouTube called blanching. And then you harvest that, and it's just that one plant. You don't do it to all of them because you want the rest of them to grow in a normal manner. But I've never heard of it until I came across it one day. You can even grow indoors during the hunger gap. Your sprouts. It's where you put seeds in a jar and you cover them with some water filtered water. We don't want our chlorinated, fluoride-filled water from the tap in that. Swirl it around, let it sit on the counter for 12 hours, drain it, but you can keep that water and water your plants with it because it's full of beneficial microbes. Put new filtered water in it and then drain it through a strain. There's special tops that go on like a mason jar to do this. And then it sits on the counter. It doesn't have to be in direct sunlight, but the seeds now have moisture and they're going to sprout. You can then eat those sprouts. You always wash them. You keep rinsing them every 12 hours, draining them, letting them sit out. 3 to 5 days, you have food. So things that we've done this with is mung beans. They're delicious. Once you harvest them, you can store them in the fridge, either in a container with a paper towel or in water. And they need to be consumed within 3 to 5 days, and always wash them before eating. Other sprouts are alfalfa, broccoli, radish. It's kind of any seed blend, really. You can grow microgreens. So that's growing the seed in soil, and you're eating the sprout with the cotyledon leaves. So basil blends, beet blends, sunflower seeds, Italian blends, watercress, mild mix, mellow mix, Asian blends. There's all kinds of microgreen seed packets. It's a normal seed. Like if you were to take a seed out of a microgreen packet and plant it and let it grow big, it's a normal plant. It's not a separate kind of seed. You're just growing many of them in one space so they don't get big. You're eating them at their tiny state, packed with nutrition. There's mushroom kits. You can get blocks or spray kits like lion's mane, pink oyster, golden oyster. We grew mushrooms for the first time from a kit. It was the golden oyster, and man, that was just wild to watch it grow. And it does smell like mushrooms, definitely. You could forage during the year and either store them or preserve them. So food from the land that you might find are wild leeks, which are ramps, nettles, chickweed, dandelion root and flower, sorrel, fireweed, morel mushroom, fiddlehead fern, puffball mushroom. Understand and identify these plants with a friend who knows what they're doing or with a book. Always run material through more than one source. Don't just trust an app. We don't want anyone getting sick. And then there's things that can quick grow as soon as the ground is ready in spring. You know, you could easily put radish seeds out and in 30 days have radish to eat. You know, it's really good if you let the radish go to flower and it makes a seed pod. Have you ever chewed on the seed pod when it's green before it turns to the dry seed? It tastes just like a radish. It's very good for a salad. You can grow lettuce, mustard greens. You can plant beets and eat the greens right away. Tatsoi and komatsuna are other good options. So keep these things in mind when planning your growing season. Don't forget to follow Learn As You Grow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening. Leave a review and share it with a fellow gardener. Don't forget to check out my YouTube channel, Shawnee Grows. That's SHAWNEEGROWS. Shawnee Grows for even more tips, and we do live streams there. Check out the show notes for links. And until next time, grow every day in every way.